Hello there. The woke lefties will be over the moon that they have managed to drive another set of nails into the coffin that contains what's left of the UK, because Gen Z thinks the UK is racist, despite everyone in the world wanting to come and seek safety here, to the point Gen Z says it will not fight for the country that brought them up with education and healthcare paid for by the older generations. According to a YouGov and Public First poll reported in the Times, only 11% said they would fight for the UK, and 41% said they would never ever fight for this country under any circumstances. So what do you reckon about that, Richard?
Yes. I think I'd like to see a little more detail, actually, on the breakdown. Wasn't this between Gen Zers aged between 18 and 27, was it, or 28?
Yeah, about that, yeah.
Yeah, all right. So I would imagine that a good lion's share of those aged between, say, 22, 23 and 27, 28 would be definitely more indoctrinated by the woke agenda. But from my own personal experience, speaking to younger family members and, friends, children as well, those who are aged between, say, about 14, 15 and about 20, I would say they are probably less likely to be so wokely indoctrinated. Not forgetting, Reform has seen a large surge in that demographic in support. So I'll take some of these findings with a pinch of salt. But the thing is, what we have to remember is that this indoctrination within our education system has been systemic, and it's been very powerful. And a lot of people have sent their children off to university. One child has gone off to university and another child has come back. The adult, I should say, that has come back is definitely not the one that went to university. And I've seen this happen, and it's horrific. So we ourselves have we've let them down. We've let down our children and grandchildren. We should have seen this come in. We should have fought harder against it. And it is a cancer. I'm sorry. This is a total evil.
Yeah, what I get from the statistics, or from what I read from them, and in my limited experience as well, the younger of the Generation Z are definitely more Reform UK supporting than they are Labour supporting. So I'm wondering, if they'd done this study, say 5 years ago, would it have been even more horrendous than it reads today? And maybe we're seeing part of this because this study comes 20 years after the last similar study the Times did in 2004. So they did the same thing in 2004. They've just done it again. And 20 years ago, 80% of young people said they were proud to be British. That's now 41%, nearly just half. And 60% back 20 years ago said the country was united. And now that's just 15%. So you get the changes have been quite marked over 20 years. But maybe it's worse. Maybe it was worse. And now it's actually is getting better, but it's still so bad that it looks terrible. I don't know.
I mean, that is quite a staggering shift, that is, Jeff. What I'm wondering is, has there been a change in the methodology of collating the data? I mean, for instance, how now with new DEI rules affecting probably everything, are they now changing the mix and the spread of those who they're asking these questions to? For instance, would they be prior were they just doing a basic cross section regardless of race, etc., and now and religion, and now it is a case of no, it has to be an even spread of black, white, ethnic, just to create an ethnically diverse system, and also in terms of the way the people identify. Yes, identify. because amongst those who identify as that which they are not, that's all I'm going to say, you may find that they are more likely to be infected by the woke mind virus. And
Yeah.
they may be then more likely to say, yes, Britain is more of a racist country. But we can't at the same time play down the impact, as I said, of this woke mind virus through our education system. It's very difficult to break through this. This is a new thing, I think. I was watching Catholic Unscripted, a brilliant YouTube channel, which I highly recommend, incidentally. Not that I'm Catholic, nothing against Catholic, whatever, just I'm not. Anyway, Gavin Asherton, is it? He was the Queen's former chaplain, is a regular contributor to that. And he was talking about how intense the woke mind virus is, this iteration of the woke mind virus.
Yeah.
And unlike the one, because years ago, believe it or not, I regarded myself as quite a liberal, I can't say lefty, but liberal-minded and anything goes type of person. I think everybody goes through that phase, except now it's much more intense. This is a solidification of the most hideous aspects of certain belief systems, I'll say. I don't identify them. I'm not talking about religion here. I'm talking belief systems about who you are, what you are, etc. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And, and things have changed very much in that respect. So, it's more difficult today to, as Gavin Ashton was saying, it's more difficult to almost impossible to leave the woke mind virus. Once you're infected, it could be pretty much terminal. Yeah.
And it also comes down to what was the actual question being asked 20 years ago compared to today. Did they ask exactly the same question of exactly the same age ranges? Or are the questions themselves nowadays infected by wokeness? Yes. I mean, let's go to the extreme. 20 years ago, they were asked, dear young person, just like everyone else, do you love your country? Nowadays, they'd be saying to you, dear youngster, just like everyone else, do you hate your country? I mean, that's the extremes you could sort of go through. So, yes. I'm wondering whether, and also people when they're answering online polls, I didn't check whether this was an online poll or a paper poll or how this was conducted or whether it was done by advert or whatever. People who answer these things electronically are always thinking, in which database is my answer going? Where is this going to end up? If there's any chance at all it goes into a job-destroying woke database, I know how I'm going to answer this. And that's another problem.
I'd like to rephrase your question even further. I mean, could it be somewhere along the lines of, do you believe that this racist nation of Great Britain that has a disgusting imperialistic path is potentially racist or not? Yes or no?
Yeah.
And would you fight? Would you be so low as to fight for this country which hates you? Would you do that? And if so, you're racist. So would you? Yeah.
That's yeah. I'm sure it was. It's a YouGov poll, so I'm sure it wasn't anything like that at all. But there you go. Now, it was quite interesting because when you finish reading the article, you obviously go to the comments section. And there were quite a few people there, saying things like, this is a good sign. Young people are now better at critical thinking than they used to just go to war when the government told them. Now they're thinking critically. Isn't that absolutely fantastic? And they are more averse to violence. This is brilliant. Yes, until someone invades you and uses violence against you, and then you want them to defend us, and they won't want to. And so it's great news for our enemies, actually. You can still be a critical thinker and believe that we need to defend ourselves. If you think critical thinking is just looking at this country and calling it racist while ignoring Democratic Republic of Congo, half the African nations, a lot of the South American nations, some of the nations in the Middle East, who do not practice democracy in any shape or form, or it's corrupt democracies or whatever it is, and corruption in local government. If you think that pointing at us and saying that we're the main enemies and not them, that's not critical thinking, I'm afraid. That's called indoctrination. But there you go.
Yes. I mean, one of the things you do raise an interesting point here, and this isn't exactly me playing devil's advocate, is that there might be something to this. Let's face it, it's one thing to fight for Britain. It's another thing to fight for globalist interests abroad at the behest of those globalist interests under the guise of being part of the British Army or part of the British forces.
Yeah.
So, yes, I suppose a bit of critical thinking should be applied now before you actually decide to go to war. I mean, there are a few occasions where I've looked at the situation and I've gone, no, that was an unjust war. And we know it was an unjust war. I mean, Iraq, Afghanistan, what did we do there? We just destabilized those countries. So, and a lot of decent, good men and women lost their lives. I'm just, aside from the civilian count, which is horrific, which is absolutely horrific, a lot of good, ordinary, young men and women died. Our forces died in those wars and in other NATO forces, but no, sorry, not NATO, coalition forces died in those conflicts as well. And you have to ask yourself, if I was in the forces, would I be so readily, with the information that we have in this day and age, would I be so ready to go to war for king and country, knowing fully well that this is probably not a good idea and not defending my homeland? This is defending somebody else's interest and ideological belief. So it's a strange one, Jeff. It is a strange one.
It is. Geopolitics has always been complicated,
yes,
and has always had nasty people in it on both sides. And this is just borne out today as well. It's no different from hundreds of years ago. It's just that the weapons we use are more wide-ranging and can cause a lot more damage to a lot more people. Gone are the days when I still remember reading an account of one of the major battles centuries ago. I can't remember which one it was, where the people that lived in the villages and towns around knew that on that field there was going to be a big battle today. So the two armies were turning up, in very good order to have a battle, and all the people lined up around to watch. I mean, that was it. That was a sort of the entertainment for the day. Can you imagine trying to do that these days?
Well, that goes back a long way. I've heard accounts of very similar accounts with battles between the Romans and the Iceni or the Iceni tribe, and the Boudica, whichever you would pronounce.
Yeah.
That all the families would go along and they would watch as well. But at the same time, I don't know how civilized things were there. I'm not so sure that the Romans took much sympathy upon the families, but yes, I know what you're saying. Yes, warfare has always been a very strange thing, and how it's connected to geopolitical movements. I mean, let's face it, it was a family feud that sort of kicked off World War. Well, not kicked off, but was very much instrumental in what happened in World War One. We see a lot of that taking place, and in that period of time.
But war nowadays is total war. You're either all in or you're not. And if you're not all in, you will lose. And this is a problem when you've got a large section of your society who will not defend the country that they grew up in, that nurtured them, that gave them the education and healthcare, as I said, and can't be and have been told that is racist. The very fact that they're here is part of the racist problem. And so they're not going to fight. It is a major problem because what do you do if millions of young people, because what's going to happen if there's another war and it gets out of control? We will have conscription. People will be conscripted in. What are you going to do when millions just turn around and don't turn up? What are you going to do with them?
Yeah.
And that is a big problem. You're going to go round and knock doors in? No.
Yeah, but whose fault is this?
Just,
Whose fault is this? Nobody trusts the establishment. Do you?
correct.
Do, I'm sorry. If there's a knock on the door tomorrow and they say, "Right, you have to go and fight for this country," Keir Starmer told you to. Really? Who are we fighting against then? Let me
Well,
be the
actually,
decider of this. Sorry, but that's very much more to the point here, is that people don't trust the system. They don't trust king and country, and rightly so. So, I mean, the worst thing is there could be a case of the boy who cried wolf, because nobody's going to believe Keir Starmer. Oh, we got a war. It's really a just war this time, whoever that may be with. And all of a
yeah.
sudden, everyone is like, oh, we're not going to be involved in that, when it could actually be another Hitler.
Yeah, politicians have always lied. We know that. But at least at the end of the day, as I've said so many times before, we always knew that a politician, however bad they were in this country, had the good of the country and the well-being of the country and the sovereignty of the country at their heart, because they knew without it there'd be history. But now we've got a whole bunch of politicians and people who think that that is unimportant, totally unimportant. Even borders don't matter anymore.
Mm.
And this is a country now where everyone seems to be a minority with an axe to grind. Everybody. Many in the white population now believe they're being subjected to a two-tier everything in society, while everyone else thinks there's far too much white privilege. And we're all fighting for the same cake. And in this regard, the education system knows which side its bread is buttered on. So many young white people end up disenfranchising themselves through virtue signalling because of it. And actually, young white boys are the ones now at the back of the queue for all the good things talked about in education. And that follows them right through their lives from that point on. Because if they don't get a rock solid education to start with, or they're at the back of the queue for learning to start with, so everyone else can be given the advantage to start with, which is what's been happening, then they're always at the back of the queue because they haven't been given the start they deserved.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah.
I agree there, Jeff.
And I'll ask a question. If it's okay to fight hard for minority rights, then how can this be a racist country? If it's okay to do that, then we're not a racist country, are we? If we were a racist country, it would be impossible. You'd get no funding, you'd get no help, you get no advertising, you get no special privileges to get first dibs at a job or promotion. Would not happen.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, the proof's in the pudding. The final proof is in the pudding, where you have to ask yourself one simple question. It's this. A lot of the people who are trying to get to this country are coming from Africa. North Africa mainly, and from other parts of the Middle East, from various countries where the population are how we would describe as, in this country, ethnic minorities. So why do they want to come to a racist country? Would that be your first port of call? So it's almost as if, say, if we found out that, I don't know, I'm just going to pick a country off the top of my head. I'm going to say Mongolia, just for no reason. Okay, that is for no reason. So all of a sudden, if we were forced to leave Britain, and Mongolia happened to be the most anti-white, racist, anti-white country on earth, would you choose to go there? Regardless of any benefits that it would lay on, would you choose to go there? No, of course you wouldn't. No, that's the last place you'd want to go, because you would fear for your lives, and also for the lives of your family, who would, of course, be joining you, wouldn't they? Women and children would be joining you, yes. But what we're seeing in this country is something very different. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, and that's not to say that Mongolia is anti-white or any anti-UK or anything.
No, that's what I said.
This
yeah.
is just an out of the blue comparison. It's just a name. We should have called it.
And I am 1% Mongolian,
land.
so I'm 1% Mongolian. So I can say that one gene in me, whatever it is, that 1% of me. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, but this is. I mean, Mongolia is an example, as I said. It's just one example of, if hypothetically that was
Yeah.
a racist, anti-white country. Yeah. You have to cover your tracks these days, don't you, Jeff?
Yes, I know you do.
You have to be very careful what you say, otherwise, did you just say that Mongolia is? Oh, shut up. Listen to the content and go away.
The context. Yeah. Yeah, and as I was going to say, if it's okay to fight for minority rights, then why can't we also fight for democratic majority rights? Because at the end of the day, that's what
racist.
this country is, a democracy where the majority says what goes.
Yeah, totally
Now,
racist.
yeah. The Times report also points out that the older generations are proud of this country and they don't believe we're racist. But then they haven't been subjected to decades of anti-UK indoctrination via the Marxist march through the institutions, have they? Or not as much? And I tell you what, if anything did turn up and then suddenly they said we need to build up an army of volunteers and we're going to go round and round everybody up, you'll find a lot of septuagenarians, octogenarians, and state pensioners all lying about their age in the younger direction. Just say they could go and do their bit, even though they've probably been through it before.
Yes.
And that should be a big wake-up call for people. These people have been around for a long time. They know we're not racist. They've seen it. They've been abroad during the 50s and 60s. They've lived through the 60s and 70s here. They now know that it's actually gone too far the other way. That's the truth.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's funny, if I was just thinking exactly the same thing myself, Jeff, is that you'd find the veterans coming out, first of all, regardless of age, regardless.
Yeah.
They'd be emptying the nursing homes. You know, I'm serious. I think those people love their country, and one last sort of like gift to their children and their grandchildren. You know, they're the real people in this country. Saying that, though, you know, it's a funny thing. Sometimes in life you need the cold water bath experience. I'm actually glad that I know it sounds ridiculous, but I am actually glad that Keir Starmer is in power, so that it will put off this liberal left woke generation from voting or having any further romantic ideas about Labour, because they're going to see their rents going up. They're going to see their inability to buy a house for the first time, to get a doctor's appointment. If they want, you know, this young generation, if they want to have children, oh, I'm sorry, the hospitals are full. You know, why? Oh, because, and the NHS staff will say why, incidentally. They will say, I'll tell you, because I know that, because my my ex-wife, when she was giving birth to my daughter, there was a person in the bed next to her, and they literally had gone from all around Bristol, Bath, all the different areas and hospitals, Cardiff. They couldn't find a bed for her to give birth in. So she had to go to Merthyr Tydfil. She had to go all the way to Merthyr Tydfil. And they were looking at possibly going to somewhere else quite far away in England just to be able to give birth on that day. I mean, that was going back 16 years ago, that was. And we were told by the NHS staff, this is the reason that this person is in the bed here. And they were said that it is because of an influx of, at the time, an influx of persons from elsewhere.
Yeah.
There we go.
It's all those English people coming across to their second homes, Richard. That's what it was.
Yes, of course
all
it
those
is.
English people coming across to their second homes, insisting that they have a hospital appointment immediately.
Well, that is it. You know, sorry, I know this is going off.
I knew I'd get you on this one.
Yeah,
I knew I'd get you on that one.
It is going off topic, but you've experienced it yourself when you've come to Wales. That
yes.
In mid Wales, you yourself pointed, I hadn't heard a Welsh accent once. I'm like, that's correct. We went around various places. Hey on Wye, for instance, and you didn't hear a Welsh accent. Well, that's because the Welsh can't afford to live around there. Their getaways mostly in the South Wales valleys, or again in North Wales, in pockets in North Wales, but Mid Wales and a lot of the parts of West Wales. Unfortunately, the demographic shift has been quite profound.
Yeah, But it's no different if you go to London, is there? You don't hear much English there either.
No, I agree. I agree. There's this country has a lot of problems. I mean, the thing is, you can't get a hospital appointment. Right. So in Mid Wales, there isn't an accident and emergency place there at all. Minor injuries, for instance, in Brecon Hospital, is shut, I think, at about 10 or 12 o'clock now. Right. It doesn't go through the night. And if you need to go to hospital, your nearest one is in Merthyr Tydfil to an A&E. And if it's winter time, you're not going to get there because the road going past through the Brecon Beacons, it's impassable. So you're just going to die. That's what's going to happen. So yeah, and that's all because, of course, the amount of people there on the census is. Who do you live here permanently? Is this your main place of residence? They're all saying, no, it isn't. This is my second home. And it's like, okay, well, we'll cut down. We don't need so many hospitals. We don't need so many nurses. We don't need so many schools. We don't need so many police. We don't need so many, the whole thing. It just affects infrastructure. This isn't having a pop at the English. Look, at the end of the day, I'm English myself mostly. And if I was born in England and etc., English mother. So if I was to say, go to, if I was in a similar position, able to afford a second home, would I buy one? Possibly. I don't know. I'd like to think I wouldn't. But you can't be too critical, really, of those who can, just because the money and the affordability is there. No, that's it.
Yeah. Now, me, if I was extremely rich, I wouldn't buy a second home. I'd buy a huge hotel and then stay. When I go to my other area, I always stay in a hotel.
Yeah, buy a hotel
and
stay in a different room every night.
Yes.
Rotate it.
Anyway, yes. But that doesn't really get us away from the main subject.
Oh, yeah. What was that again? Where were we?
Well, it's this not fighting for your country.
Yes, yeah.
If you won't fight for your country, why would you expect anyone else to?
Oh,
and it also, as I've said, it absolutely relies on you believing that this is the worst country on the planet. That anyone who comes in as an invader would improve it. And if you think that, and if people out there are thinking that it's great for Gen Z to think this because it's good for critical thinking, obviously haven't done any critical thinking in their lives. That's all I can say. So there you go. And on that note, I think it's good afternoon from me.
And it's good afternoon from him. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.